Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Tej, and today I'll be showing y'all how to make a beat for GUNNA'S DS4EVER. The inspiration for this beat mostly comes from the songs 25K Jacket and Flooded. I made the entire beat from scratch, so I'll be showing y'all my whole process of making the sample and adding drums to it. If you're new to the channel and you like these types of videos, be sure to hit subscribe. As always, I'll have the finished beat played at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around for that. And with all that out of the way, let's just hop right into the beat. Before I start breaking anything down, I'm going to show you a quick preview of the sample. So the first sound that I grabbed was this Omnisphere guitar preset, and it's from this Omnisphere bank right here. And so I went into the MIDI and I put in this pattern right here. So how I went about creating this, I started in by putting my bassist notes here. So the key that I chose was D sharp minor. I effectively kind of put in a bass line using these kind of initial plucks here. So for the first two measures, I have my bass notes being D sharp, and for the second half it's B, and then the last half of the fourth measures moves it up to C sharp. And from here I almost wanted to put in like an arpeggiated chord. So right here on the left I have the D sharp minor triad. Pretty much all the notes for the first two measures fall between D sharp and A sharp, or between the first and the fifth note in the scale. The notes that I most frequently used were probably the ones in the minor triad, but I also added notes to make it sound a little more interesting, such as F and G sharp, which are the second and the fourth notes in the scale respectively. So that's how I kind of constructed the first half of this pattern. And for the second half, I more or less kind of did the same thing. I'd say the notes kind of follow the similar pattern where it's kind of rising and falling in this same range of notes, except I'm shifting the focus down by about like 1 or 2 scale degrees. So over here, most of the notes that I ended up using were like F, F sharp, and G sharp. Over here, these were D sharp, F, and F sharp. Honestly, I wasn't really thinking too much about the music there when I was penciling it out. It was more so me just kind of penciling in notes that I thought sounded good. For effects on the guitar, the first thing I put on it was an EQ with a low cut and some other cuts to get rid of some of the harsher mid and low mid sounds. And then I put an RC20 with the Magnitude Transition 1 preset. I changed the EQ a little bit, and I think I also adjusted the space knob too. And then lastly, put on some stereo shaper and just moved this top right knob right here a little bit to the left. And for my next sound, I went to Trillion and I got this Martin bass guitar preset, and I went in and laid these pretty basic chords, and they just corresponded with those bass notes that I was talking about in the previous pattern. So for the first two, it's D sharp, and for the second two, we have B and C sharp. Next, I went to Expand and I got this Spiccato Strings preset, and I put in this MIDI right here. My main focus was on these notes right here and kind of create like a counter melody to that first really repetitive pattern. And for these dimmer notes right here, I wanted to rise up the velocities into the first notes here, just add a little bit of an accent at the ends of each half of the pattern. And for effects on the strings, I just put a default fruity reverb on it, and I turned the wet up a little bit and adjusted the decay knob. Next, I went to Contact and I went to the factory library and got this flute preset, and I put in these 2 flute rolls here. And for these, I mainly just wanted to kind of ascend or descend the D sharp minor scale. I wanted to counter the main melody or accent the main melody kind of similarly to how the strings did. And for effects on the flute, I put this EQ on it. I put a similar reverb preset as I did for the strings. And then I put some Final 1 in RC20 and turned off the noise. And for my last melody sound, I got this flute runs preset from Ethno World 6. And I went in and put a couple flute runs here. and I used those pretty sparingly in the final beat. I think that was just some ear candy and to make it sound a little nicer. So I rendered all those out as audio clips. I wanted to add a little change up to the guitar pattern. What I did is I went over to the audio clips here, I right clicked on that one and I selected clone, and with the new audio clip I just went in here and I turned the pitch down by 1200 cents or 1 octave. After that I finished arranging the loop and I rendered it out as a WAV file. After I had the rendered WAV file, I imported it into a new FLP and I arranged the stems accordingly, and then I added the drums and finished the rest of the beat. And for my drum sounds on this beat, I used a mixture of the Horizon drum kit and I think one of Max Shooter 49's drum kit. I think it's either the Essentials 1 or Essentials 2 kit. So the first drum sound that I grabbed was this clap right here. Next, I added my hi-hat pattern. For the full 8 measures, I more or less just kind of used the template of the first measure. It was just using these 2 steps here with like the rolls and the staggered velocities and all that. I think these 2 rolls right here were both using the 1/2 step snap setting. I kind of wanted to create some more variation with the 2 steps, so not only did I adjust the velocities, I also kind of moved the pitch around a little bit too. And for this roll right here, I used the paintbrush tool. I held the Alt key on my keyboard and just dragged out the notes and then rolled up the velocity. And so I just copied that over for my 3rd and 4th measures. I tweaked the pitches of some of the notes, but more or less it's practically almost the same as the first 2. And then I took that whole first 4-bar measure and I copied it over for the full 8. So I routed that to a mixer track and I added some effect tricks. I put it on the 1/8 tempo setting and I put these effects in here. And I think for the reverse, I adjusted the mix level a little bit so that way it wasn't too pronounced. Next, I added the snare pattern. I put the repeated hits on the end of the first beat on all the even measures. And for the rolls, I used the 1/3 step snap setting. I'll kind of zoom in and show y'all like where the notes were placed and the velocities and all that. And for these, I just wanted to make the notes sound a little more unique and kind of experimented around with the pitches and stuff like that. And then next I added this perc sound. And then next I added what's probably way too many open hats, to be honest with you. So I used my typical combination of like the Southside open hats and the second one being this one. Along with both of those, I also included this kind of different sounding open hat too. And all together they sound something like this. And for my hook, I added this open hat. I kind of made it sound like a ride cymbal. I didn't play the other open hats, it was just this one. This is kind of similar to some of the open hats that's used in like other Lil Baby or like Gunna beats. One that I can think of immediately is in Some to Prove by Lil Baby. In parts of his verses, he has this kind of similar alternating open hat sort of thing going on. I'll just play it and I think you'll kind of get a gist for what I'm saying. And for those alternating open hats, I put on some Pan Man and just put in these settings right here. And to round up my drums, I put on an 808. Overall, I think this pattern's pretty simple. It's just following those same notes from the bass guitar and the loop, but adjusted accordingly to how I changed the pitch of the sample. The only thing I think I added was just this reverse sounding 808 right here. So how you create one of those is you get a note of the length of your liking and then go up to the magnet tool and go to the 1/4 step snap setting and then hit Control U on your keyboard. It'll slice it according to the grid lines. And then from there, you can kind of fade up the velocities as you see how I did with that one. that's all I got. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you're able to take something away from it. If you found this video helpful and you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more tutorials like this, be sure to hit subscribe. Leave any thoughts or recommendations in the comments below. And that'll be it for me. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Why don't you run with this, Taj?